Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy holidays, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. JACALYN Kerbeck, and our show today is The Resume Whisperer. And this is a very exciting show. We've got a fabulous topic, which is really a part 2 from last week. Our topic today is dealing with trick questions. And the star of our show is an expert when it comes to helping people move on in their career. And he's helped over 11,000 people find gainful employment. So he is someone that you definitely want to get to know. His name is Josef Stetter, and he actually has 2 different organizations, 2 companies. You can see his contact information right there on the screen. Let's welcome him to the program. And I also want to say hello to our new viewers on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us. Joseph, come on out. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me again. Always an honor and a pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure. I really loved last week's show about trick questions because I got stumped on a few of them myself. So I think there's something for us all to learn. But before we go into some more trick questions, I would love to have you talk a little bit about the fact that you do have these 2 different businesses and you help really 2 different groups of individuals. Can you share a little bit more about the difference between the Celebrate group and also Josef Stetter for Resume Whisperer?
So as a Celebrate group, I started my career as a recruiter and I've progressed to what is now a corporate culturist. I help companies hire the right fit people and keep them and learn how to engage them and basically excite them to work there through various personality assessments, old school headhunting, and insights on what drives the individual, how they like learning, how they like communicating, their leadership style, so that companies don't have to suffer the extreme cost of turnover, which can be as much as $180,000 per month. In relationship to that, if a company does downsizing, I also have a program called Land Your Dream Job Now, which basically remarkets people in terms of their resume, teaches them how to interview, how to network correctly, how to use employment agencies to find a job, how to use job boards, and pretty much every resource they need under the sun to land their dream job. And I've done that with individuals as well. And I've had the pleasure now of helping over 12,000 people in as little as 2 days land their dream job. So I'm here to serve and offer value to the world and to people that are ready to make that change as a New Year's resolution or just in general are frustrated with where they're at now.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Joseph. So last week we talked about some questions that we can get tripped up on in the interview process. And as a result of that, as I mentioned before, I learned a few new things that I really wasn't aware of. But sometimes we think something's a trick question and it's actually not. But I'd love to have you start off the program today talking a little bit about how do we in the interview process, I don't know if it's get out of our head, but if you think about all the things you're supposed to know, you're supposed to ask, and then you're supposed to be present, it's a lot to actually deal with. So why don't we start off there? What is your advice and your coaching for someone going through the process?
So to start with, when I write resumes for people, I always focus on the results that they produced rather than their duties and responsibilities. So I've mentioned this in a few episodes. If, let's say, you're an accountant and you tell me that you know how to do financial statements, I've never met an accountant that does not. But if you say to me that you organized uh, a filing system or improved the filing system to the level that, you know, it was 30% more efficient, or the fact that it eliminated most of the errors that exist on it, those are what companies need to hear. Less and less of the regurgitated, blah, blah, blah that everybody says that is the same routine. Know how to do this, and I have experience in this, and I'm a hardworking teacher, or more of the specific results. And so if you know the results that you wrote on your resume, and if you know how to illustrate that, the interview becomes easy, because I teach people 7 simple rules to an interview that will answer, we'll say, 96% of all interview questions. Because for some reason in English, we keep finding new ways to ask the same thing. So in an interview, you might get questions like, tell me about this job, or give me an example from this job, or describe how you would do something, or if this happened, how would you handle this, or compare these two things, or what would you do here, or how would you do this. All of them are the exact same question. They're asking you, can you make us money? Can you save us money? Or can you increase our efficiency? And if you can you prove it? So if you can quantify the results that you've produced, then the interview becomes relatively easy, and you're not focused on information that's irrelevant.
Thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. I know of a number of people personally who are looking to leave corporate and then go out on their own. And then at the same time, I know people who left corporate and then had to go back because they couldn't make their business work. And so this is the time of year when people are getting promoted. This is the time of year when people are getting laid off, the pink slip, so to speak. So
or getting their bonuses and waiting to see if they got their bonus.
Yeah. Holding their breath, exactly. So how would you guide someone who had their own business and then wants to go back into the workforce, as opposed to someone who is looking to change from one job or one career to another in the workforce?
So this is an example of what we had with Etienne, that volunteered to have kind of a live critique of his LinkedIn profile and then eventually resume, because they tend to overlap. Again, if you were an entrepreneur, it's focusing on what you did as an entrepreneur that's relevant to the job. It is the same conversation. If companies worried that you were an entrepreneur, you just acknowledge, look, I tried it. Unfortunately, the cash flow wasn't there. I've got to take care of my family, the bills. And so priority right now is working for a great company and producing high-level results for them.
And would you advise someone who potentially, and I know the answer to this, but because we discussed it before, someone who's just watching for the first time, if you are an entrepreneur and maybe you're not making the amount of money that you want, to continue on and maybe get something on the side to bring in some of the revenue, is that viable?
So we actually live in a huge gig economy. There is a massive list of things that people can do on the side. I usually share it as part of my course as one of my bonuses. So you could do things from, like, use websites like Fiverr and Upworks, where you can get paid to sing happy birthday or do something silly. You can do graphic designs and writing and translations and video games and a bunch of categories there. So there's websites like Fiverr and Upworks for that. You can get paid to be in experiential marketing. So if you've ever gone to Costco and they give you the product samples, they don't actually work for Costco. They work for experiential marketing firms. You can write blogs and articles and get paid anywhere from 2 cents a word to $500 a page on topics that interest you, such as makeup, shoes, hair, sports, whatever the case may be. You can be a virtual assistant. You can be you can create graphics in terms of logos and brochures and various graphics, even though AI has created a wider variety of ideas. You can be a dog walker, a people walker. Yes, there is a real profession called people walker, where especially after Pokemon Go came out, people were so into their phone and trying to capture the Pokemons that they walked into the middle of roads and highways and got run over. And so now there's a profession called people walker where in combination, if you're on your phone, somebody walks beside you and says, stop, traffic light. And also, it is now used for people that are trying to get into shape that want somebody to talk to while they're going for a walk. You can work in extras for movies. You can work in catering, which is great cardio, and you get fed really well at the end of the night and get to take some of the food home. You can work in, so there's a multitude of things that can be done on the side that can generate some decent income, depending on your interest and your background and the level of time and energy that you want to spend. You can do tutoring online. You can do, create business plans or documents for people. There's a multitude, depending on the skill sets, that you could take some of your corporate background and make that your kind of side gig, for example.
I am blown away with what you just shared, just extemporaneously off the top of your head, of all these different professions that are out there. I have not heard of the person to walk with you, but I have heard that there are professional huggers that you can,
they're called
hire
professional
someone.
huddlers. There's actually now, and I found this hilarious, I just saw a video on Instagram in the UK, people that are professional gnomes, like garden gnomes, where basically a gentleman lost his wife, needed some companionship, and he's paying people to sit in his yard and dressed as garden gnomes, for example.
That's certainly creative.
So there's definitely, listen, depending on, obviously, if you're in the States, let's say in states like Florida, California, where it's beautiful weather all day, there is a platform called rover.com where you can get paid to babysit people's pets. So someone says, I'm going for a dinner, I need someone to watch my dog for 3 hours, and they'll pay you, let's say, $20 an hour to watch the dog. So
who knew? But that's great that you're sharing this information, giving
right.
people
And then
ideas.
you have the typical Uber driving or Lyft driving, and you have the Airbnb in your room and things like that. I mean, depending on time of year and depending what events are like, I was lucky enough to live in Vancouver during the Winter Olympics in 2000 and I want to say 9, 10, and I know people that rented out their apartment for like $7,000 for a week or something like that, because it was the Olympics. It was, and people were willing to pay it. So there's always different options that can be done. And again, depending on how much time and energy you want to spend on it, you can do data entry from home. There's a lot of, let's say, pizza places that as long as you have a microphone and a computer, you can log into your computer anytime you want and take orders for pizzas from your home, for example. So there's a wide. I actually give people about a 15-page list of resources these are all legitimate companies and websites that you can go for experiential marketing, for catering, for pretty much anything that you can think of. And it breaks down into categories and it tells you the pay ranges for each one, because I have both Canadian and American resources for people.
That was going to be my question for you. Do you provide something for people to help them open their mind to other possibilities? So thank you for answering that.
Yes.
So let's start off with a question that comes to mind, because to me, I always feel like this is a trick question. So you are in the first interview, and one of the questions is, well, Josef, if we like you and we decide we want to give you an offer, how soon can you start? And then I might say, well, I'm not really sure, because I was planning a trip and I need to take some personal time when I leave my other job. And I don't think they're looking for that. But if you said, well, I can start 3 months from today because I have some other obligations, how does that sound?
So again, the second version definitely sounds better. There's nothing wrong with owning the fact that, let's say, you've already booked, for example, travel, because you're showing to them that you don't want to start and leave them early on, and so you're more responsible, more serious, and most companies will respect the honesty and integrity. Really, I think it boils down to the urgency of them needing to fill the position, and also how long it's taken them to find candidates. So I recently had a success story with a gentleman that was living in Vancouver, and he has background in logistics uh, and supply chain management. And he interviewed with a company that is in uh, northern Alberta. It is about 2 hours from the main city of Edmonton, up north, really in the middle of nowhere. They put him through 3 interviews. And after the third interview, said, before we discuss the offer, we're going to fly you, your wife, and your kid down for kind of 2 days so that you can see where it is and make sure that you're comfortable with the location. Um, and they also offered him over $30,000 to relocate. So they were ready and willing to wait for him because they couldn't find anybody for 6 months. And so whatever time he needed to pack up, and I think he requested about a month and a half to pack his things, finish up with, break his lease and everything like that. And they were okay with it because nobody else was even close to getting the job.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. What about if the job requirements are pretty lengthy and you have most of them? You get into the interview and I say, Joseph, thanks for coming in. We are looking for someone with managerial experience. And I see on your resume, you have project management experience. Have you actually managed people?
But generally, as a project manager, you do manage people. Again, every question, it's the wording that you choose, because the difference between a project manager and a director is that project manager makes sure that all the departments do their work. Director gives the strategy on how to do it. And the higher up you go, the less of the actual minutia you do, and the larger the range or scope of what you're doing. So it's all about the verbiage when you answer the question to kind of say, as a project manager, I had, let's say, 10 direct reports, or I was in charge of 5 different departments, and each department had between 5 and 30 people that I was responsible for the input that they gave.
Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to continue on with our conversation, but we're going to take a break and we're going to hear from one of our sponsors. So I just want to thank everybody who's joined us. I see there's a number of people who have logged in on all the various platforms, which is super. If you happen to have a question that you would like to have answered, please feel free to drop it into the comments. And this is part 2 of dealing with trick questions. So if you happen to miss last week, just go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio, which is where we just crossed over 1 million views this year. And I think that was about a week and a half ago. So thank you again to everyone who is watching and listening. Okay, we're going to take a look at a couple sponsorships. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hello everyone, I'm Simon McDonald. I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, a very beautiful part of the world. Seems a long way from the USA Global TV station. But remember, USA Global TV is worldwide. It's a fantastic platform. And every Wednesday, I come along here as part of the show of the United Kingdom News and Culture. And it's just like a family reunion each time. It's one of these amazing stations that has such a beautiful, friendly, and intelligent atmosphere as well. And we reach out to an audience in the most unimaginable places. And I came here I don't know, must be over a year ago now. I was introduced by Dr. Philip Chan, and I met Ian Plum-Turner and Helena Chard, who are co-presenters on the show, and then Diane Floyd-Bem came along as well. And I mean, the five of us, Dr. JACALYN, of course, who is our host and our mentor, has just made this show work so well. Tremendous people, lovely time we have, and we impart a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. Nothing's rehearsed. It's all done off the cuff, and it all just gels. And we get great feedback from people coming back and saying how they're enjoying the show. It's lovely to hear. And it's lovely to get that interaction from outside as well. And we're all listeners, and some of us are elevated listeners as well. So we enjoy every second of it, and we hope you do too.
Thank you so much, Simon McDonald. We are back here on USA Global TV and Radio, the Resume Whisperer Show, and our topic today is dealing with trick questions part 2. And we actually have a question from someone over on Instagram. Hello, Ring Thing. Nice to have you with us. It's been a while. Glad you're here. Ring Thing's question is, how should you answer questions if you're interviewing for a position lower than your past experience? How do you explain why you're willing to take a lower level job? It's a good one. Joseph, what are your thoughts? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
All right. Cool. There we go. So first of all, excellent question, and thank you for that. That's actually one of my kind of favorite trick questions. So I'm going to answer this in 2 parts. So number one, you might get a reaction of you're overqualified for this job. There's no such thing as overqualified for this job. If any company has the audacity to tell you that you're overqualified, I want you to kind of look them in the eyes or right above the eyebrows and say, so if I understand you correctly, your company does not want to take more money or make more money. And then I want you to be quiet and watch them squirm and react and say, well, no, it's like this. A lot of times, if you're trying to do a lesser position, they're worried that you're going to be bored and leave them. So you want to reassure them to say, look, I'm choosing to apply for this position because I want to work for this company. I think this is a phenomenal company. It's an opportunity for me to get my foot in the door and prove myself to grow again. You can also say that, for example, responsibilities have changed. You're taking care of a family member, and the level of dedication required for that leadership role that you're now stepping away from will take you away from caring for your family. And so your priorities have shifted, and therefore this is what you want. But if you focus more on, I've wanted to work for this company for a very long time. This opportunity came up and I was like, okay, this is a great way for me to get into this company, prove myself, and then grow with the company. That's probably the best way of answering it. And then again, if they want more specific, something like, I've had health issues or I'm taking care of somebody and this is better for me now, generally will not be questioned, especially since the whole issue of mental health and well-being has become its own industry in the workforce. And phenomenal question. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ring Thing. I have a follow-up question to that question, which is, in that case, should you play down your level of experience? And so I'll give you an example. So I felt for a long time, because I had a doctorate, that was placing me, when I was in the corporate world, that was putting me into a different category that made me unattractive, so that I wouldn't put a lot of focus on the doctorate. And then at some point I thought to myself, well, I don't think this is the kind of company I want to work for anyway, if I can't even talk about having a doctorate. But if you have certain experience and it's not in alignment with whatever this other position is, should you downplay it?
No, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with the idea that if you're working for a company that doesn't appreciate your education, your experience, your value, you shouldn't walk away from that company. You should run. I tell my clients that, if you're asking for a $5,000 raise or like an increase in pay in an interview from what you're currently making, and the company's giving you a hard time about $5,000, they're going to treat you awful, because $5,000, unless it's a brand new startup, should not break the company's bank, kind of thing. It will help you feel better. Even $10,000 will help you feel better. In the grand scheme of thing, a $10,000 raise works out to approximately an extra, we'll say 500 or so, depending on what state or province you live in, $500 to $1,000 per pay. Generally speaking, that extra $500 to $1,000 per pay is not going to drastically change your lifestyle, but it's a principle thing. And so if a company is giving you a hard time about it, it's not. At the end of the day, you have to understand, it is your responsibility as the interviewee to articulate how much value you bring. There's a time and a place for a doctorate. So I'll give an example. My father, God rest his soul, was a civil engineer for 45 years. And he would get resumes of people that had doctorates in constructions but never worked in a construction site. And he looked at me and goes, "This is all theoretical. This is all academic. You've never actually dealt with trades. You've never actually scheduled a project. You teach it, but you haven't dealt with weather conditions. You haven't dealt with lack of supplies, thanks to, let's say, something like the pandemic." So he would not even interview somebody with a doctorate because he needed people that actually worked in the field. Now, if your doctorate is related to marketing or related to human behavior or psychology, or there's always applications for it. And even within business, in terms of strategy execution, in terms of leadership, in terms of that the fact that you have a doctorate should give you extra value as opposed to decrease your value, right? There's a very, very famous, we'll call it, story where this naval ship that breaks down, and all of the engineers are trying to figure out how to fix it. So they call this guy that's been an engineer over 30 years, and he comes in and he taps his fingers a little bit on the boat, goes to his toolkit, grabs a hammer, hits the hammer, the engine of the boat starts working. And he sends an invoice to the VP for $10,000. VP looks at the invoice and goes, "Okay, you were here for 5 minutes." So he emails the expert, "Can you give me a detailed breakdown of why this is $10,000? And the engineer with 30 years of experience says, $2 for a hammer, $9,998 to know where to hit the hammer. So again, if you've got a PhD and you've earned the right to say this is how good you are, don't belittle that. I've helped 11,000 people. I've invested 30,000 hours in helping people find a job. I've written 11 books. I've contributed to multiple articles. I've earned the right to say this is why my opinion is relevant. I'm not just somebody that got into recruiting, worked in it for 6 months and said, I'm an expert now because I've worked in recruiting. There's experts and there's experts. You need to know what you're dealing with.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, as a follow-up from that, if you don't have exactly what they're looking for, can you, because it's an objection, right? We're looking for someone who has XYZ experience. Can you say to them that you will get that experience while you're doing the work, that you're so committed and so passionate that that is exciting, that you're going to be able to learn something else? Like, let's just say it's the Microsoft platform and you don't know it. Well, you could take training so that you can learn it. So instead of taking that as an objection and being singled out that, no, we can't include you in this process anymore, you can say that I'm willing to take the training. I'll pay for it myself.
Again, I would go back and kind of go like this. As a recruiter, if a candidate has 60% of the skill sets that my company is looking for, I consider them a great candidate. The reason being, if it's something technical like Microsoft Office, if all the other skills like the personality traits, the technical skills are there, a great company will pay for you to learn Microsoft themselves, right? But again, if we're talking software, every company will pay for you to do training on it. At the end of the day, if you can highlight the results that you produce, your leadership style, your communication style, your ability to solve multiple problems or deal with multiple projects at the same time, the individual technical skills is going to be mute. Similarly with the negotiation of salary. If you've demonstrated the value that you bring to the table and the employer has understood that at the bare minimum, you're going to 10x their investment in you, so if you're asking for a salary of, just go with round figures, $100,000, if you're good at what you do, you should be generating them $1 million. If you're asking for a salary of $250,000, you're going to generate them $2.5 million. So paying $5,000 for training is redundant to them because they're still making $2.5 million.
Thanks so much for clarifying that. Now, when someone comes to you and they're working with you, do you want them to be completely authentic about what's happened in their career? So in other words, they don't have on the resume, obviously, that they got fired, but they did get fired, or they're about to get fired. Do you want someone to share the information so that you know exactly what's going on, or you just want to focus on the new position that they're interested in getting?
Okay, so I think there's a little bit of background work that needs to be done from a perspective of, were they fired because it was a very bad culture, or were they fired because they sexually harassed somebody, or stole something from the company, or were liable, kind of thing. I've personally experienced extremely toxic work environments. I think I shared, but when my father had cancer, because he had a massive heart attack during his life, his heart was completely destroyed or killed. And so when cancer came in, they couldn't do chemo, or they couldn't do radiation with the chemo because it would affect his heart, and they couldn't do bypass on his heart because of the cancer. So his breakfast was 18 pills, and his chemo had to be a customized cocktail that they had to give him. And so where there's a level where my father had chemo and got pneumonia and was rushed to the hospital. And I was working in a private college where I was averaging 70, 80 hours a week, working 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9:30, 10 p.m. daily, and then Saturday, for example. And I walked into the owner's office and said, my father nearly died. I need to leave. And the owner looked at me and went, no, I think you're lying. I said, I work here 6 days a week. I'm working 80 hours a week. Do you honestly think that my excuse to leave work early would be my father nearly died? She's like, yeah. And I looked at her and I said, I have one father. I can find another effing job. And I walked out. The next morning, I came in with a box ready to be fired. And she came into my office, was like, how's your dad? I'm like, he's in ICU, but he's stable. I'm going to go back to the hospital today. And she looked at me, she goes, you weren't lying. And I looked at her, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, really? My father nearly dying would be my excuse to leave work early when I'm here 6 days a week. I was out of that job within 2 weeks, and then I filed a massive complaint against her and had her school shut down completely. So, you have to take things with a grain of salt, that sometimes, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. Sometimes it's a clashing of personalities, and that does happen. Sometimes it's just an environment where, they suck the life out of you, right? I worked for an experiential marketing firm where I was the director of HR. I had a team of 10. We were finding 200 to 400 candidates per week for really, really horrible jobs. But when I say horrible, like the sales managers would scream and yell at people in front of everybody. The sales manager would send emails at 2 a.m. saying, I've switched your work location, and if you're not at work at 9 a.m., you're fired. But the VP of operations was like, the sales managers are gods, so do whatever they say. And I'm like, there's only so much I can bleed from a rock. And so as much as I went up to bat for my team, I was like, unless you're willing to spend more money or fly my team down so that we can put boots to the ground and talk to people, we've milked every possible candidate from 3 different job boards, and continue to find you 200 a week. So I've been in situations where it was very bad. Unfortunately, a lot of people that are in leadership have titles, but still act as managers. The difference between a manager and a leader is that a manager is worried about losing their job. A manager will micromanage you, look over your shoulders, scream at you, yell at you. A leader wants to lose their job, because if I'm doing a great job, and Dr. JACALYN, and you're working for me, and you get promoted to my position and I'm out of a position, one of 2 things will happen. Either I got promoted into an even bigger leadership role because of how well I groomed you, or I did such a good job that I'm out of a job. But because I did such a good job, other companies will recognize my leadership and offer me a lot more to come work for them.
I think you really brought to light that it's all about perspective and how to look at things. And thank you for the transparency about your dad. That sounds like it was a horrible situation. But I think it's a good example for other people that you have to decide how much you're going to put up with. You have to decide, is this the culture for you? Are you shining? Are you blossoming? Are you growing in this culture? Or is it someplace where you feel like you're stymied or you're just being micromanaged, to your point? So I'd love to talk
And
with
again,
the
you
time.
also have to take a look. Sorry, I just want to add that you also have to take a look at, your mental health and your emotional, your physical health. At a certain point, as much as you need the income in many cases, it's not worth you dying. And, I've been in situations where it was so bad that, coming from a family that's very risk averse, for me to quit my job before there was another job was horrible. And my family was very judgmental and like, how could you do that? But I was like, if I don't do this, I will end up in the hospital, because that's how stressed I was from it. So, you have to take things with a grain of salt. So yes, I do ask my clients to give me some background, because part of my coaching is to help them transition why they have a gap of, let's say, 5 years in their work, or, why they switch jobs so frequently in this time period. Because I need to coach them on how to say that in a way that doesn't hurt them.
And Joseph, I just wanted to share with our audience, because I think it's interesting how you and I connected, and I hope that people will take this away and that they'll reach out and connect with you, that you found us through Google and then reached out, and you were on our reunion show last year. That was the first time that we met. And then I actually referred someone to you to help her find a job. And she just was so positive across the board about how you treated her and how the process went. She just couldn't have been any more appreciative. So now you're here with your own show.
We're still actually talking. So we're still kind of checking in with each other, and we'll call it a remote friendship in that as well.
That's fantastic. So I want to go ahead and share one of your websites so that people can actually get a visual as we're talking about this. So this is JosefStetter.com. And for people who are listening on audio only, it's his name, JosefStetter.com. What do you want people to know about your website? What really resonates that you want people to take away?
Again, it's a quick background of my accolades, but it's also a matter of, here's what I can do for you. So if you're an individual that's kind of ready to go New Year's resolution, or I need a better job, I need to take care of my family, I can make that happen. You shouldn't need to struggle for 6 months to a year to find employment. It can be done in as little as 2 days if it's done correctly. I've had the pleasure of having about 30 people get hired in about 2 days in their dream job or ideal job. And again, a lot of it is how you word your resume, how you word your answers in interviews, and avoid traps of being negative or focusing on the wrong things and talking about the wrong things. Giving you the correct resources in terms of how to network, where to network, what to wear, what to say, how to follow up, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, how to work with employment agencies, how to beat the job boards. And pretty much I've done the homework for you. All you have to do is listen to the coaching and take action. I just had a situation where I was coaching somebody and I said, don't just send resumes. You have to follow up and call, and you have to check. The person never followed up, never checked, and was like, oh, you're not helping me. I'm like, but you haven't done any of the work that I've told you to do. You need to take responsibility that I've done research for you. I've given you the names of companies. I've sent emails on your behalf on LinkedIn to start the conversation. But if you're not following up on them, if you're not getting a hold of them, that's your responsibility. Understand that I can give you the resources, I can give you the tools, I can give you my 30,000 hours of expertise and put it in ways that directly relate to your communication style, directly relate to your experience, directly relate to your job market. Because I do my homework when I coach people to make sure that even though I've created kind of skeletons that people use, you're the one that chooses which meat is on it. You're the one that chooses which spices go on it. But the templates of, let's say, these are the 7 rules for an interview. I explain to you the psychology of the interview questions. I explain to you the formula, and I kind of go, okay, now let's do some practice questions where you're going to use the psychology and the formula to answer the interview questions in your own words and in your own style of communication. But I can get you to the interview. You still have to interview. You still have to follow up. You still need to do certain things to make sure that you're successful. And if you don't do those things, then you're going to spend 6 months to a year going, there's no jobs out there. No, there's jobs. You're just looking in the wrong places, or you're doing the wrong things. And it's changing the conversation, because part of what I'm trying to do with this podcast, part of what I'm doing with my courses is to break the sea of sameness, that everybody has the same looking resume. Everybody has the same approach to an interview. Everybody answers the same way. And then your competition is significantly higher. When you can stand out and show your greatness, show your genius in terms of results that have figures in them, dollar figures, percentage figures, time figures, inventory figures, macros, templates, policies, procedures, documentations, special initiatives that you did, the listening of how good you are and what you bring to the company changes. It's like, I technically I'm in the coaching world. I do not call myself a coach on purpose, because there is no standard of coaching. Anybody can call themselves a coach. Anybody can say they're an expert. So I'm not for everybody, and I respect and appreciate that. But do due diligence to ask, their success rate, how many people they've worked with. Can you speak to one of the people they've worked with? I pay for self-development courses all the time. There are experts that have been around for many, many years that just I never resonated. So for example, again, Bob Proctor was a coach and mentor for 50 years. He endorsed one of my books. I did a few courses with him, and I never connected with them. Even though he was saying some of the same things that other coaches or experts were saying, his delivery or his personality did not gel with me at the time that I did the courses. And that's perfectly fine. And I'm like that too. I'm sharing ideas right now. And thank you for the person from Instagram that asked the question that I hope will resonate in a way that you go, this makes sense. It's not somebody telling me what every other YouTube video is telling me. And that's what I hope to achieve with both my videos on social media, as well as this podcast, as well as my approach to coaching people.
Well, you certainly are bringing tremendous amount of value. That's definitely for sure. So thank you for that. So at close out, can you just walk us through what is the process to work with you? What should someone do? Should they reach out to you on LinkedIn? Should they go to your website and schedule a call? And
So
that's the
there's
first part. And the second part is, once they do connect with you, how should they be prepared? What should they have to show you or discuss with you?
So there's two parts. Obviously, I'm all about relationship building. So if people want to reach out to me, I'm happy to talk to them and give them insights and free advice, even if they don't choose my services. In terms of working with me, there's two ways of doing it. They can kind of do it through the automated online platform, which is the course called Land Your Dream Job that I've created. And there's a link through it for JosefStetter.com directly. And in that, there's 8 modules. There's a modules on resumes, and there's 15 templates of resumes and 15 cover letters that you can use that have helped my candidates get jobs in those 2 days. There is a section or a module on interviews, and I go through behavioral interviews, trick questions, questions you can ask the interviewer, technical questions, and how to answer all of them using my formulas and my systems. There's a section on beating the job board. There's a section on working with employment agencies, and not only working with them, but I've given you a list of, let's say, the top 300 employment agencies in the world, in US and 300 in Canada, list of job boards, how to network correctly, how to optimize your LinkedIn. So I've pretty much done all the hard work of what you need to do to be successful in your job finding. So you can do it self-paced on your own. And if you do it on your own, then every couple of weeks or so, there is a Zoom call where I get to coach the people that are going through the coach as a group call rather than paying me individually. Or if you want to choose for me to hold your hand until you get hired, it's a little bit more expensive, but you get access to me at your disposal anytime you want.
And we were just sharing your LinkedIn profile. So I encourage people to go over to LinkedIn and connect with you as well. So Josef, you have your own playlist over on our YouTube channel, Resume Whisperer with Josef Stetter. People can go there to look at all of the previous episodes. And of course, this one will be there as well. What would you like to leave our audience with as we close out for today? And of course, we'll be back next week with more interesting topics.
So I'm just going to say this, 2024 is looking to be a very exciting year. Make sure that you're strategic in your job search. Don't just throw pasta on the wall and hope that it sticks. Know what you're targeting, know how you want to get there, have a game plan, and be different than everybody else. Stop looking the same, talking the same, using the same bullet points and the same look of resume, what I call the cookie cutter, black and white, where everybody has the black circles, everyone's using Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri as a font. You have a chronological or functional resume that doesn't really highlight how great you are. It just says you know how to do stuff or you have experience. Prove your results. Share them. I always give this as friendly tool. If you're lucky enough to be in a relationship, when you come home and you tell your partner, oh my God, you'll never guess, they gave me this huge problem to solve today. And I spent the whole day thinking about how I'm going to do it. And I came up with the most brilliant solution that's going to save the company hundreds of $1,000s or increase efficiency by 30% or something. Those are the stories that need to go on your resume and in your interview to make sure that you land your dream job now.
Outstanding as always. Thank you. What a beautiful way to close out for today. So thank you again, Josef. And thank you to everyone on all the various platforms that are watching now or will watch in the future. And of course, this is an educational tool that is available for anyone. Josef is looking forward to hearing from you. So please do reach out to him, whether it's through his LinkedIn, whether it's through his website, the contact information that you see in the show notes. We are thrilled to be here, and we will look forward to coming back next week. So happy holidays, everyone, and be safe. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.